On today's Moving the Chains, Jerel, a very cool guest, a recurring guest for us now. That's
Yeah,
Perry Woolbright, the head man of the North Myrtle Beach Chiefs.
yeah, really great to catch up with Coach Woolbright today. Again, repeat guest, so got that familiarity there. Always gracious with his time, so excited to see what he's going to be able to do going back down to the beach and getting the Chiefs rolling. But it was a lot of fun hearing what his plans are for the future.
No doubt, a guy that has won a lot of football games all across the state. Excited to see him going back down to the coast now and seeing what he can do there. But once again, head coach Perry Woolbright, the North Myrtle Beach Chiefs, coming up today on Moving the Chains.
Get ready for the ultimate South Carolina high school football experience with Movin The Chains. From previews to recaps, we've got you covered. Dive into our expert preview shows, predicting winners and sharing insights. Then join us post-game for the thrilling recaps, exclusive interviews, and highlights you won't find anywhere else. Plus, connect with fellow fans on our Friday night spaces on Twitter/X. No one covers South Carolina high school football like us. Join us at Movin Chains on all social media platforms and visit movinchains.com today.
Welcome into Moving the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Jerel Hendricks. Got a great interview today, a very special guest, the new head coach of the North Myrtle Beach Chiefs, Perry Woolbright. Coach, how you doing today?
Oh, we're doing good. Getting summer rolling here. Last week before dead week, so it's a good week for us to push through, and then everybody kind of gets a break to recharge everything for the second half of the summer.
Well, we appreciate your time, Coach. We really do. This is you guys' first time tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Facebook/Twitter/X. Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff at Movin Chains, our website, movinchains.com, and our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Coach Woolbright was hired in January. He's been the head coach at Clover for the past 3 seasons. Prior, he was the head coach at Lexington, Batesburg, Leesville, and North Myrtle Beach. He also spent time as an assistant at Appalachian State, Chowan, Gaffney, and Fort Dorchester. Coach, let's just start with the transition. What's that been like, going kind of from that Clover area, getting back down to the coast and getting set up there at North Myrtle Beach?
The transition part's always the hard part. There's really probably a 3-4 month period, for as a coach, the transition, you're leaving one group of kids and getting to know another, kind of figuring out what kind of changes need to be made and things like that. Then, you got the family side of it. I was down here most of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Last time we'll go back home Thursday afternoon, sometimes Friday afternoon. And then, the family's back up there. Of course, their life doesn't stop. My wife's at work, kids are at school, kids got events going on. So just juggling all that, so that part's always tough. And, usually I speak each year at the Football Coaches Association to the aspiring head coaches. And one thing I talk about is the transition of coaching in that 3-month period where it's just not the toll on you, it's the toll on the family. So about 2 weeks ago, we all moved down, maybe 3 weeks ago, all moved down here. So this kind of period where we can kind of start getting things adjusted and things start running a little better.
Coach, we've had you on a few times, and we always love, catching up with you. And wanted to, for people who may not know your background, want to know like how you've gotten to this point in your coaching career. Maybe detail the previous stops, because I know you probably got some new faces down there in North Myrtle Beach, as we do all across the state of South Carolina, and want to learn about you.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of never went into my career. I didn't think, I thought I'd be a long-term guy everywhere I've been. Really haven't kind of gone out and looked to leave the places I was at. Now, when I was assistant, I did, because when I was assistant, I knew the path of wanting to be a head coach. And, after being at Fort Dorchester for a season, Chowan for a season, and Gaffney for 2, I felt I was ready to be head coach. And that's kind of how I ended up down here the first time. They gave me a young head coach a chance, opportunity at 23 years old. I thought I knew a lot more than I did. And, I find out quickly as being a head coach is a lot different, being in that OC seat, assistant coach, and had to learn a lot quickly. We struggled first for a few years here, did get things turned around, and kind of was happy here and enjoyed this as a great community. Everybody thinks the beach is a big community, but one thing I'll say about North Myrtle Beach is it's really a small town community. A lot of the people down here have lived down here their whole lives. They support the school just like you're in a small town like a Batesburg, Leesville. So like a Clover. So it's really got that small town feel, even though you're kind of in a tourist area. But kind of things happened, and Batesburg Leesville kind of reached out kind of through Phil Strickland. So the one thing led to another. We ended up felt like that was the best opportunity for my family at the time. At the time, Horry County was not paying good. I was a young coach, so I was chasing that big job, the bigger paycheck, and Batesburg Lees will pay pretty good. So we made the move to the Lexington area, down with Batesburg. I kind of grew up that way, as my dad was head coach at Gilbert, so we were familiar with the area. Knew the tradition of Batesburg Leesville, wanting to win. Spent 3 great years there. And really didn't intend to leave. Could have stayed there a long time because it's a great place to coach. And football is very important there. But Lexington job kind of opened up. They kind of reached out to me there. We were living up in the Lexington area. There's some changeover happening in Batesburg. My principal was retiring. My assistant principal was retiring. We just kind of having very changeover, and was fortunate enough to get the Lexington job. Spent 7 great years there. Really wasn't looking to leave there. We kind of really got things rolling there our last few years. 2 9-win seasons in a row, and had a lot coming back that we could have been pretty good the next year. But Clover reached out. Had been an AD, head football coach in 5A for 7.5 years. That's a ton. Clover was an opportunity to kind of give up the AD part of coaching and just kind of focus on football. Clover was a community I was familiar with. I went to high school at Clover. My dad was head coach at Clover for 12 years. So it's kind of going back home, and we thought we would be there a long time. But all the time, our path is not the path we thought it was going to be. 3 great years at Clover. And then North Myrtle Beach just kind of came open this offseason. Some people from down here, as the previous couple times it came open, reached out and just asked if I was interested. My parents still live down here from the time I was down here. Both retired. And, every Friday night, even since I've left here, my dad or my mom have been at every single one of my games on Friday nights. Of course, I've had sons playing the last 6 years, but that's 3.5-hour trip every Friday night. A lot of times they would drive back, so it's kind of an opportunity to get back close to them. As they've gotten, older in age and stuff like that. It's a chance to get back to a community that we really cared about a lot of times. And, if we were going to move, my daughter's going to be in 8th grade next year. We would not have moved her in high school. So it's really kind of a time and piece. Everything just kind of happened for a reason and fell into place. And so we're happy to be back down in the North Myrtle Beach community.
Coach, every great head coach knows you got to have a great staff around you. How is that staff shaping up for you? Were you able to retain some guys from the previous group, or to bring in a bunch of new guys, or who was some of those guys you want to shout out today on the program?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I got a great group here, as I have every school, and that's a big part. A lot of people don't realize about high school coaches. It's not like college. You don't hire a head coach and all of a sudden a whole new staff comes in. 90% of your salary in coaching is from teaching. Just because you got to be able to go in and find the coaches that can mesh with your philosophies and beliefs and what you want to do, and then you hope to kind of be able to bring in maybe a guy or two. And I've been in both situations. I've been in jobs to where I haven't had any teacher opens to bring anybody in. So I've kind of had to adapt the staff to be able to do that. And I guess that's one fortunate thing with moving around is I've learned to kind of figure out which guys mesh well here. So I was able to bring in a couple guys. So I brought in Alex Lusk as my defense coordinator. Alex was with me at Lexington for my last few years there. Then my last 2 years, he's come up to Clover with me. So he came down here with me. Another new face to the staff, Bradley Potts, was with me at Lexington as my secondary coach. He's come down here with me. And then a lot of the other coaches were previously on staff. So a couple of them I knew from the past. So 2 of them actually were my teammates at Appalachian State. One I kind of brought back to help with offensive line, Ross Grawl. He was actually my offensive line coach here. My first time was my center in college. Zach Johnson was a receiver with me at App State, and he's been down here. He came down here with Blair Harden and has been down here since. And then, I had some great job. Rod White has been here a while. He does a great job with the weight room and the running backs, and so kind of retain him and then retain some of the other guys. Coach Dow was defense coordinator last year and wanted to stay on staff, so we kept him with his expertise. So I really feel like we got a good staff of guys here that can help us. I'm not a guy. Some people like 20, 30 coaches. I'm not that kind of guy. I don't really do a lot of volunteer coaches. Everybody that's going to coach more is going to have a position. You're going to be in charge of that position. You're going to expect to be there and coach full time. So I kind of do have a smaller staff. There's 11 of us. I feel like that's just my number. If I just got two teams with a varsity and JV, that I want. So I got 11 guys, including myself, that I feel like we can go to war with each Friday night, and day in, day out, they're going to work and do what's best for the kids.
Coach, you mentioned mentioning meshing philosophies and things that you've learned and stops along the way. What are some of those offensive and defensive schemes that you've kind of put together and plan to implement here? Will you be calling the offense, or what is your plan for either side of the ball?
Yeah, so offensively, I've called the offense everywhere I've been. From my first job at Fort Dorchester all the way to now. That's kind of something that I felt like I probably would never give up. Head coach, there's a lot of different hats you got to put on that aren't about football. Well, I feel like with still calling the offense, it allows me, once practice starts, I'm just the offense coordinator again. I treat my defense coordinator as he's the head coach of the defense, so he worries about what the defense is doing. So it'll kind of be the same philosophy I've had everywhere. We'll be kind of good. We won't do a lot offensively, but we'll be very good at what we'll do. We'll be physical in the run game, then kind of set that all up off our RPOs and passing game off of that. Very similar to what we ran at Batesburg, Lexington, Clover, and then adjust to our personnel. If we got tight ends that works out, we'll be in some more tight end sets. If we got some pretty good receivers, which we feel like we got here, we'll be in more 10 personnel set. And then hopefully find a good running back. Been fortunate enough, really, my last 4 years at Lexington, we were really good at running back with Jonah Norris and all those guys. And then Clover with the Stone brothers, we were really good at running back. And so I feel like we got some guys here that can kind of fill those shoes too. Defensively, Alex, Coach Luss kind of fits what I want. Of course, he was with me at Lexington, and we'll be very good at what we do defensively. We won't be in 12 different coverages, 18 different blitzes. We'll make sure our kids in the right spots. All the jobs I've taken, really, Batesburg Leeds were pretty good athletically. Everywhere else, we've had some good athletes, but we've also had a lot of just really good high school players, kids that play hard. So we don't try to do things we can't do. We don't try to be flashy where we can't be. If we can, we will be, but we try to be in the right places at the right times. And in high school football, you can win a lot of games if your kids are coached up well, if they're executing right well and in the right places. So Coach Luss does a good job meshing kind of what he does defensively with what I want to do offensively and what we want to do as a program as a whole.
Coach, one of our main goals here in the program is to really shout out some of these great kids we have across our state, great programs. So who are some special guys the Chiefs have coming back we should be on the lookout for next year on Friday nights?
Yeah, offensively, they were kind of Coach Jerel here last year. Offense, he does a great job. He's now at Conway. He'll turn that program around quickly. He's a little bit different offensively philosophy. We do have a lot of the same philosophy, in the fact that we're going to be good at what we do. We're not going to do a lot of stuff, be really good at what we do. But skill wise, I think we got a really good running back in Jaden Wilson coming back. He's a big old running back, kind of like Landon Stone was. He's 6 foot, 6'1", probably 195, 200 pounds. So he's built a lot like Landon was. So I feel like the same guy. And then we got some guys behind him to kind of spell him here and there. Receiver wise, we got some older guys last year, didn't really have a quarterback here, so they didn't throw the ball very much, really hardly at all. And it was just a personnel thing, and that's what you got to be able to do at offense. And high school is adjust, but we feel like we got some speed out at receiver. Jaden Chestnut, he's one of the top guys in little 5A and 100 meters this year. Qualified one lower state, and then made it all the way to state. Rio Stevenson's another guy that kind of be a two-way guy for us here doing that. And then we got some young guys that at receiver that could probably really step up and be good. They're going to be rising sophomores. We got a few of those guys that had really good springs, really good summers so far that haven't had a lot of varsity experience, but we feel like they could be pretty good players for us. Quarterback wise, of course, it'll be new for them. It'll be two young guys probably vying for that spot. And then we got one guy that we're trying to decide, older guy. He was a quarterback a little bit as freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Going into senior year, we kind of got him there until we kind of figure out who we don't. So we got Evan Barrett, Mason Walker, and then Matt Sadler, all three kind of vying for a quarterback job. Two of them rising sophomores, one's a rising senior. Defensively, probably be led by Dustin Clement on the defensive line. He's returning starter from last year, played really well. Another guy, Jimmy McCullough. People, especially in this lower part of the state, probably know that name. His daddy is Jimmy McCullough Sr., who's the principal at Loris High School, who was an outstanding high school football player at Loris and then went on to Clemson. So we got him at inside linebacker this year. Will be a really good player and like that. And so now, and then we're finding kind of the pieces to go around him with those guys.
All right, Coach, we mentioned you were hired early in the cycle, getting in January, and having familiarity with the program previously being there. How important was that for you to kind of get started, knowing the building already, maybe knowing some of the faces, but then also being hired in the cycle to kind of set up for the off-season program in preparation for this year?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely helped. First job I took over where I kind of knew everyone as an adult. Going to Clover, I knew everybody, but it was as a high school kid, a middle school kid. Here, I know them as an adult. I was head coach here first. So with the community, I was able to reconnect with a lot of people that I knew already, that I'd stay in touch with. Within the school, some of the same teachers are there, a couple of assistant principals that were there before, janitors, before, secretaries from before. So within the building stuff, it was a really easy transition just because knowing people that way. Taking over the program, when I took over here the first time, 23-year-old head coach, a lot of answers coming at Gaffney, thought I was really good, knew what I was doing, really didn't. And so every day was learning something. I thought I knew how to turn over a program, but, I was changing. Something didn't work, and I changed. Something didn't work. But now I've taken over several programs. So now when I go into a program, I have a little bit more of a systematic approach of what I need to do in the first couple weeks to kind of figure out our progression from there. To kind of seeing what changes, because every program I've taken over truly has been different. And so if you got one plan, say, hey, when I go take a job, this is the way I'm going to change this program every time. Well, it probably going to struggle because not every program is different what needs to work on it. Some programs, sometimes maybe it's a discipline thing. Sometimes it's just a structure thing. Sometimes maybe it's a mentality thing. And so just having that familiarity to be able to come back in, see what was here before, what's here now, knowing from other places, just observing in the first few weeks of knowing where to build a plan, and now getting to know the kids. Because if I'd have taken this job in May, we would still just be in the get to know you phase. I'd still be getting to know the kids, know the coaches. Big part of spring practice, especially your first one as head coach, I try to tell a lot of people, it's not just the kids learning, it's the coaches learning each other. It's the coaches are understanding how I want to practice, how I want practice to flow, how periods should look, how we should transition, how we should coach each period, and then so it's not just a player. So the first spring practice is usually not a super smooth one because everybody's learning. I'm learning the coaches, I'm learning the players, they're learning me, the coaches are learning me. And so really the first spring practice that. So when you can get in early, get your base philosophies in, then you get in spring practice. Now that makes the summertime period. We're really not building now and changing the culture and things like that. Now we're working toward what we need to do to be successful in the fall.
So, Coach, you mentioned that you've already been through spring practice. You're kind of going into summer stuff now. What have you learned about this group so far that makes you excited for this season?
I think it's a very hungry group. They've responded to everything. It really hadn't been, we really don't want to work. We really don't want to do much. These kids, we've thrown a lot at them. The way we run summers it really picks up the tempo of expectations, and it's really not a lot of the football part. Yes, we practice football every day, but it's really the conditioning, the strength training, and it's the mental fortitude of implementing our philosophy that I feel is like important that you got to build in the summertime to be successful in games in the fall and going with that. So I've really liked the way the kids have responded to everything that we've thrown at them. They've been hungry to learn more. They've been hungry to learn and want to be successful.
Coach, we're catching you mid-June here, and you talked about your personnel having a lot of receivers this year and then trying to break into quarterbacks, and a big part of that is 7-on-7. So are you a fan of 7-on-7? Have you guys competed in any so far? Do you have any coming up? And 11-on-11, a newer kind of competition that's been implemented in South Carolina a couple of years ago. Do you participate in that as well?
Yeah, I think 7-on-7 is important to an extent. I'm not a big tournament 7-on-7 guy. I usually try. tried to do one big university one this summer. Just kind of way our calendar worked out, I wasn't able to do one with the dates. So we've already done two. We went up to South Columbus in North Carolina and threw against teams. We went to Dillon last week, and then we have one down at Soxty with a lot of the Horry County teams on Wednesday this week. Those are the type 7-on-7s I prefer more because you get teams running their offense, you get teams running their defense. It's more like a practice against each other. So you can really work on your fundamentals. You can coach things. When you get to tournaments, you see a lot of defenses you'll never see again. You see a lot of BS offense you never see. And I see both sides of it, because if we go to a tournament, I know I'm going to have to do some things offensively we normally want to do if we want our kids to have a chance to be successful. So when I go to a tournament, it's more about seeing the kids compete, because the competitive nature at a tournament is higher because you're competing for a championships. Points count matter, but you're forced to do some personnel things that you maybe not want to do. Just like us. Well, what we do offensively, I'm not going to see one backer in the box the entire season. Even on 3rd and 20, they're going to keep two backers in the box on us, because if not, we're going to run inside zone and probably try to still get a first down, which we have lots of times. So we just don't see those things, so we don't do. But I do like doing one tournament a year, just for the competitive aspect of it and stuff like that. It just kind of gets sold away with some people just do that. I mean, 2-man, not a lot of defenses run 2-man, but in 7-on-7, every single person is going to be in 2-man. Not a lot of people run sprint out of empty, because usually the quarterback's getting hit in the mouth. Well, 7-on-7, you're going to get a lot of empty sprint out. So 11-on-11, I haven't really done any of that. I know some guys that love it. I think it's just kind of a pick. If you like it, it's just not something, for me right now, that I care to do. I do think for the coaches that I think it's good that we have it. I think it's good to have things like that. So if people that want to do it, they can do it. The people that don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. So I think it helps the ones that feel like it helps. And then the ones that don't feel like they need it, it's not something they're forced to do, or it's not there if you want to do it.
Coach mentioned it several times. It's obviously your second stint down now at North Myrtle Beach. So the state as a whole, but especially Horry County, continues to grow. What have you seen, change-wise as far as the area or as far as the school now that you've, been back here for the second time?
Yeah, the area's definitely grown. There's a couple places that were golf courses the first time, and then now are subdivisions. And I guess it's like, I was in Lexington, that whole area was blowing up. Clover, they're splitting off to a second high school. So it blown up to almost 3,000 students for the split this year. Then, now I've come down here, and, this whole Horry County area from the south end to here, is just growing like crazy. So there's definitely more people in the school than the last time. They've done some upgrades that look really good, redone the cafeteria from last time. I think it was when Coach Jerel was here, they did some renovations to the weight room, which has really helped that area. We'll get more racks in there and things like that. So there have been some changes like that have been for the better. So it's definitely a growing area, like kind of a lot of the places around the state, I guess.
Including yourself, there's been some great coaches come through this program that's had some success, but unfortunately haven't had the results the last couple of years. What is something when you came in the building in January, you're like, hey, I want to implement, try to change to really get an upward trajectory and really put your stamp on the program again?
It's really hard to tell. Sometimes, maybe it's just not a mesh. I think Coach Hill's a great coach. I think he did a good job here. Sometimes it's just, a down cycle at the school. North Myrtle Beach is kind of like a Lexington, kind of like a Clover. We're never going to be a 13 every single year win team. Now we're going to strive to it. We're going to strive to be the state championship, region championship every year. But we're going to have cycles to where we got to figure out how to be competitive and get to 6-7 wins. And then kind of like Lexington. A lot of my years at Lexington, we were 7 wins, 6 wins, 8 wins, and then we had a really good group come up my last 3 years, and that's where we made the run at it into the third round of the playoffs for a couple years there, and lost to some very good teams. I think it's the same way here. I think we got a good group. I think it's about getting the kids excited about football again. That's a part of it. I have a very disciplined philosophy, but, it's also about getting excited. I can't just come in here and beat these kids down and expect them to be excited. So it's kind of building that relationship, but getting them in here to say, and the big thing is getting some longevity in here. I kind of got it turned around here the first time. Was here 4 years and left. Blair Harden came in and did a great job after me, keeping it rolling. Was here 3 years and left. Matt Reel came in here, did a great job. Was here 4 years and left. And it was all kind of for different reasons. They felt better in their family. Coach Hill's been here 4 years. Now there's a changeover. I'm hoping we can be successful here. I got about 9-10 years before I can retire. So I'd like to kind of be here long and let this community see a place where we get it back on the right track, but then sustainability and not and that's what a lot of people that I haven't met yet that are from the community that I've seen lately. Well, are you going to stay? Are we going to have a coach for a long time now? And, I do want to be that guy to where we come in here and get this things turned around, and then keep it going and give them some longevity here and some sustainability in the football program.
You mentioned this is really kind of a small town community there at North Myrtle Beach. How had they embraced and supported you and your family now that you're coming back there?
Oh, they've been great. Everybody down here, from helping with the move to helping with finding a house to buying a house, closing on a house. This is the first place I've coached to where my first cycle players are now very important parts of the community and the business world and the different things they're doing. So now those guys are excited to get back involved in the program and things like that. When it's funny when I took this job and then kind of got moving. So got great guy in the community, loves the Chiefs more than anybody. Wayne White, he's the voice of the Chiefs. He does the weekly podcast. He does all the games. He's been around forever. Does a lot with Coastal Carolina. I taught his son in high school in weight training. Trey was a good athlete for us at the high school. He was our realtor for that, for buying our house. Our closing attorney that he uses is a guy named Kyle Cooper. He was a player for me here the first time, played tight end for me. Then when we kind of got into the house, needed to get clean and stuff like that, a guy named Trayshawn Cox and kind of did a lot of straightening up of the house for him. He played football for me here. So I've had a lot. That's kind of been a big thing. It's gotten a lot of players that played for me back in the community. And then we just had a big golf tournament fundraiser a few weeks ago. Got a lot of guys in the community back excited to be back out. So I've been spending a lot of time when I've had some downtime to make sure I go by their businesses or their houses, see them, check on them, because that's the thing about it. North Myrtle Beach, I tell the kids, I've been telling the kids this, North Myrtle Beach has never won a state championship. But on Friday night, the community comes out and fills the stadium and is there to support the kids. So it's not that a lot of the communities, they're there because they win a lot. It's easy to come support. This is a community with people that played here 30, 40 years ago, and they're still coming. Milton Gore is a guy that's still helping, that I brought back to help with a program. Milton was a hell of a high school player here, went off, was All-American at Georgia Southern, came back here, was an assistant coach, then went to a head football coach, then went to AD, then went back to assistant football coach. When I came down here, was my assistant coach, then went to AP, assistant principal at the school. Has always kind of helped out, and now I've kind of brought him back as kind of to help out when he can be there on defense and stuff like that. But that those type people are still in this community that gave so much, and then are willing to do whatever it takes to help the program be successful.
Well, Coach, we're going to ask you a couple easier ones here. Going into it, you should know, you've been on the show for a repeat guest here, that we're going to ask you about ask a food question. So going back to North Myrtle Beach, what are some restaurant recommendations that you can give for us if we come down there for a game on Friday night?
There's definitely a lot of good places to eat. That's definitely not a shortage. If you're looking for wings, I would suggest Oscar's. Really good place down close to Barefoot Landing. Not far from there. Rockefeller's is a really good seafood place. Right up the road from there, a place called Brisket Barbecue. It's really good if you want to get barbecue before a game. And then you got a lot of other places. You got a good environment right on the waterway. Captain Archie's is a good place. Always got a live band outside seating area. And then breakfast is everywhere. Got a place called the Shack that's right down the road from the school. And they have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but it's a real good local place. Chris and Todd have owned that for a long time. RW's right by the high school. I know y'all big hot dog guys.
Always
got to.
Great hot dog place there, breakfast place. They're big Gamecock fans. They've been open, I think, since the 50s. and still right across the sun runs it now, right across the street from the high school. So there's that, and that's the big thing about it. You know, there you got your tourist place, but you got a lot of places, and all these places I mentioned, they're owned by people from down here. Mark McDowell's part owner, and several of those places. Chris and Todd that own Shack from down here in the Loris area and stuff like that. So a lot of those people are from down here and have come back and invested in the community through their restaurants.
Coach, I love asking this one because we get a wide variety of answers here. So maybe in your office for a home game, on the bus to an away game, what's on your playlist as you get ready to take the field on Fridays?
I'm kind of an oddball, so I'm not a big music guy.
Okay.
So my coaches at Lexington used to always give me a hard time and call me psycho a little bit. So I'm big. I get up at 4:00 every morning and go work out. I had to kind of start that when I was at Lexington because it was the only time that nobody would ever bother me, so I could make sure I get in. Well, when I kind of get in my car in the morning to ride to the high school or whatever to go get ready to work out, I actually cut the music off and ride in silence. And they say only crazy people would do that. I think, oh, maybe I'm a little crazy. So yeah, usually it's I kind of started to hear. So for the last 14 years, I've driven my JV and varsity team to the game on the bus every time.
Wow.
So I'm usually driving the bus, kind of getting my thoughts together and things like that. And then once we get there, I usually like to kind of pace the field and look at things. So I'm kind of the odd person, not really much into music. You know, I listen to it if I'm in the car and we're riding, but I can actually ride in the car and don't even notice the music on or not.
Love that one. Coach, we kind of wrap this thing up, put a bow on it. What are some goals that you have for the 2026 version of this North Myrtle Beach Chiefs team?
To get these guys back on the right track, put a competitive team on the field. We got a tough non-region schedule to kind of get us ready. And then kind of make some noise in our region. We got a tough region: South Florence, West Florence, Wilson, Myrtle Beach, St. James, Conway. So week in, week out, we're going to really have to play. But I want our guys to have some success. These seniors, the transition is always tough for seniors because, they just had a previous coach. It's their last year. Sometimes they feel like, they're just worried about the youngers. No, I want these seniors to be successful. So I want these guys to be able to kind of set the tone, kind of like my first year at Clover when we went on and won region championship for the 5th time in school history. I want these seniors to be able to kind of set the tone of the expectations for the younger guys. So I want them to be able to go out and be successful, and then us to kind of get into playoffs. And once we get there, that's all we can ask for is to have a chance in the playoffs and then make a little noise.
Well, this has been great. I want everyone to go check out Coach Woolbright and the Chiefs program on Twitter and social media. They do a great job updating things about their kids and their program. Certainly follow them on there. Like I mentioned, follow us on all social media, our website, movingchains.com, and our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Moving the Chains brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Jerel, anything else for Coach? We'll let him go today.
Before I get into the cheesy stuff, I got to say, Coach, thank you for giving that detailed breakdown on the restaurants there. You gave us breakfast, you gave us lunch, dinner, auxiliary, barbecue, things like that. So that's a PSA.
I want y'all to be taken care of.
Appreciate it.
We've gone back a long ways. I can remember from when y'all first started, y'all reached out to me at Lexington on Twitter.
That's
y'all
right.
Came down. We're on the field. Y'all were doing it in the corner on the field there at Lexington. Yes. Yeah. So, I got to take care of my guys.
I appreciate that.
But yeah, Coach, just continued success. Thanks again for joining us. We know your time is very valuable, especially this time of the year as you're preparing for the season coming up. We appreciate you coming on again. I guess you said you're going to be there at least 10 years. So I guess the next time we catch up with you, it's going to be an in-season, interview, and you tell us about, how well your team's performing. So
definitely
look forward to catching up with you again and getting down there for sure.
We appreciate you guys. Thank y'all.
Appreciate you, Coach. Look forward to stopping by a practice or game. Get to see you again soon, and best of luck, all right?
Yeah, definitely. Come on down.
Founders Federal Credit Union means banking made for you. The on the go, the pick up and go, and the I want to go. Because at Founders, we give you the financial tools that make every dollar work for you. For the little things to the big things. For your future and your peace of mind. We'll always stay grounded in our roots, but reaching beyond what you'd expect is where we'll always go. Find out what our members already know and enjoy a new way to bank. Relax, you're with Founders.
Get ready for the ultimate South Carolina high school football experience with Movin The Chains. From previews to recaps, we've got you covered. Dive into our expert preview shows, predicting winners and sharing insights. Then join us post-game for the thrilling recaps, exclusive interviews, and highlights you won't find anywhere else. Plus, connect with fellow fans on our Friday night spaces on Twitter/X. No one covers South Carolina high school football like us. Join us at Movin Chains on all social media platforms and visit movinchains.com today.